So, some basic information about quiet mind practices. Quiet mind practices will never make your mind totally quiet, right? Our mind is not totally quiet ever. So, it's about just making it quieter, right? Calming and bringing the system into slower brain waves. And this can help just it quiets things down. And so it does so by giving you some distance from things. So quiet mind practices strengthen the observer, your ability to just observe yourself, your thoughts, your behaviors, your life, to observe, just to observe it all without judgment, without rejection, without clinging, just observing. And there are many routes to the quiet mind, right? And so you can begin with that, like a mindfulness practice that begins usually with focus and then into mindfulness. And you can go move that into quiet mind. You can also just begin with anything, a mantra, which can be like any words that you feel you need, right? What you're trying to generate within yourself. Beginning them loud, like not loud, but normal voice, speaking it a few again and again, and then slowly making it quieter until it's not spoken, but you're still thinking it. You're hearing it in your mind and then allow that to get quieter and quieter until it's just quiet. That's one route. Um, there's the vastness. This is why awe, the practicing with awe, attuning to awe, that quiets us down. It it's can be invigorating or kind of rejuvenating or restorative, but it also just puts us into our mind when we're considering something, when we're considering awe and looking at something that and remembering something that brings us this feeling of awe that makes us feel smaller. That shifts the brain into quieter mind, into the slower brain waves. Also, just use any vista, right? Any expansive space, right? It could be the ocean, it could be from up on a mountain or a mesa looking out over the landscape. It could be in a desert, right? Like anything that is vast. You can focus on just the vastness of things, trying to stretch and take in as much as you can, stretching your mind to consider trying to reach to those edges. And that shifts us into quiet mind. And does it fairly quickly. Um, then there's also the spaces between things, right? Negative space. And you can do this with sound if you're a super auditory person. The spaces between sounds, right? Like if you're listening to a song, it's the places where there's nothing being played. You can do this with birds, listening to birds, and the in between where there's no sound. Um, or you can just do this literally with anything, anywhere you are, any space that you're in. You can use a ring and just focus on the empty space in the middle. You can use a bracelet. Sometimes having these things on your person they're just tools that you can use that way. So if you're at work and you're feeling particularly stressed, if you have a ring or a bracelet, just lay it down on white paper and just focus on or on anything, something else without patterns behind it. Just focusing on that empty space in the middle. You can do this with any object in the room. Focus on the empty spaces. When we're focusing on that, it again causes our brain to shift and we're thinking differently. We're trying to use our brain differently and it quiets things down. Um, Caution with trauma. There are routes to do this that are not involving mindfulness, but that can just be doing some of those focusing on vastness or empty space. When you have trauma, if you're not ready for what might come up. You may want to stick with those approaches, or like that vastness or awe. You may want to avoid the ones that use some mindfulness as part of the process until you're ready. And you may not be ready, and that's okay. So, also note for depression, mindfulness and quiet mind practices decrease, they slow down. What they do is they activate slower brain waves. So you have slower brain waves running, they entrain your brain to a slower brainwave. And so if you live with depression and you're in an active depression, you may, or at the edges of one, you may find that that may make it worse, right? Because they do slow it down. And with depression, you're already dealing with slower brain waves, which make it harder to function, right? That's why it feels so hard to do anything physically. It's that psychomotor slowing that can come with depression. So if you have that running, those might exacerbate it. However, caveat there, when you're trying to go to sleep, if you're ruminating and that's one of the ways that your depression is manifesting, or one of the faces of depression that you experience, you need to shut that down so that you can sleep. And so quiet mind and mindfulness can help with that, with interrupting the thought. Again, starting with focus and then moving into the others. So when you're trying to go to sleep and your mind is just racing, use focus to put a stick in that wheel of that gerbil that's just running out of control. Interrupt the rumination and then shift to something that is quieting and calming. And if the rumination comes back up, do it again. Rinse and repeat, because our brain wants to go back into its habitual behaviors and its habitual patterns. When you're retraining your brain to behave and operate differently, you've got to do rinse and repeat. You will find the same things will keep coming up. But if you continue to interrupt and you continue to redirect, that will, over time, your brain that interruption works more quickly, and you're more able to redirect to something else more readily. So always, with everything, rinse and repeat. The more often you do this, the better your brain will be at shifting your nervous system state. So practicing these will help you in many ways for quieting the mind, quieting the system, for preparing for sleep, or for returning to sleep. And for those who really want to strengthen and build their observer, these practices further strengthen that as well. And there's many other things that quiet mind practices do, many other benefits, and I'm not going to go into them all here. If you are interested, you can take a free mini course through the Neuromeditation Institute to get a little more understanding, or I recommend taking their longer courses. And I will have some courses on there soon for self-paced online classes around depression and anxiety and PTSD. So explore quiet mind and find the way, which route is the way your brain shifts into that quieter state more quickly, and which holds it there a little longer. So play around with those various routes, with the empty space, right? Empty space between things. Focusing on vastness, focusing on awe. Those are all very, very helpful. Use a mantra and get it quieter and quieter. There are lots of different ways to do this, lots of different imagery you can use. I like space, so you can use space with quiet mind a lot. And you can use that as just focusing on the vastness, that never ending stars that you can see, and just vastness of space. And, or the distance between stars, or if you're picturing yourself in space, the distance between you and a planet, between you and the moon, between the moon and the earth, right? Between anything, pick whatever you want. but that distance between, that darkness, that what appears to be emptiness. So, focusing on those can help shift your brain into the quiet mind and play with them, explore them until you figure out the imagery and the focus, which approach is going to help you shift more quickly.